welcome to the Sutliffian Report. I'm glad to have you back. It's been a while since I've had you on, but I have to admit, even though I believe I'm informed, you always seem to shock me. Your article last week actually scared me. I know we have talked about Biden's pro-illegal immigration stance being destructive to America, but your article, Congressman, journalist, historic surge of extracontinental immigrants now pouring through Panama to the U.S. border. I mean, that's a huge distance too. It revealed something really scary on a whole new level to me. And could you tell us what you learned about the Darian Gap and the jungle passage between Colombia and Panama, and what that means for us?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me again. And I know it's been a while. Um, Most Americans are familiar with the typical Central American crossing over the Rio Grande River or, in Arizona, California. But it's really the crisis that we're in the midst of right now. It goes far beyond the three Northern Triangle countries. The vice president just returned from Guatemala. A lot of the attention and focus is on those three countries because probably the majority of immigrants that are breaching the southern border are from those countries. But what gets lost in all of that mix is the fact that there are immigrants coming from all over the world who are answering the Joe Biden administration's La Invitación, the invitation to cross the border, especially if you're a family. And so what we're seeing happen is thousands of immigrants from 150 countries are coming to the southern border in addition to the Central Americans, in addition to all the people the Mexicans that you typically see. And the way they do that is they first fly into South America, like Brazil or Ecuador, Argentina, Peru, and then they have to travel through Panama to get into the so-called the Gulf Stream, I guess, of immigration, which is up through the Central American countries and Mexico. In order to get from South America to Panama, they have to travel through what's called the Darian Gap, which is a vast, lawless, ungoverned jungle that is ruled mainly by armed militias and human smugglers, and it's a very dangerous 10-day, 12-day trek through that wilderness under guided, they're not really Mexican cartels, but they're area groups that smuggle people through and guide them into Panama. Right now, that gap is stuffed to the gills with people on the move to the United States. And when I say people, the official government parlance is extracontinentals because they're coming in from a different hemisphere, other continents like Africa. Lots of Africans, Middle Easterners. I talk a lot about Middle Easterners. I write a lot about the Middle Easterners coming. That's how they come through the Darien Gap into Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, and all the way up. I wrote this piece based on eyewitness accounts, two journalists who were in the Darien Gap, Chuck Holton and Michael Yon, who I respect greatly. Those two guys are always on the ground in the middle of it. And they brought in a U.S. congressman. They actually brought two in. I'm only naming one of them at this point. Wisconsin Congressman Tom Tiffany, who went down there on his own dime with Michael Yon and Chuck Holton, and they went into the jungle, into the Indian villages where these migrants are spilling out from the Darien Gap into, often with tales of people that died along the way, a lot of bodies left behind on that trail. All incentivized to take that trail trip by the promises of Joe Biden. So in my view and on their view, it's on Biden's shoulders that these people are coming in such great numbers. They said that there are 10,000 by their estimation that
Wow.
came through just in May. And to give,
Wow.
yeah, and to give you a little perspective on that, 10,000 is usually the total number in a regular full year through the Darian Gap. Here you've got it in a single month, and it's going to stay like that for a long time. The national security problem with that kind of immigrant, as opposed to your typical Central American, is that they're coming from places like Pakistan and Yemen and Syria and Iraq and Iran and all of those terrorism countries, countries of national security concern. So that's what the story was about. That's why I wrote it. I've often written about the Darien Gap, and I've been down into the Darien province myself too. It's been a while, but I've reported there too.
Wow.
That's
Your
a
article,
mouthful.
okay, you already mentioned. um, you've been sharing with us your observations on things on both sides of the border. What's changed recently?
Well, it depends on what you mean by recently. It depends on where you go on the border, but those extracontinental migrants that I just talked about are coming now through the Del Rio sector. They're all headed here, but large numbers of really, very diverse kinds of immigrants from nationalities that you would never imagine: Senegal and Sri Lanka and the Democratic Republic of Congo are coming through the Del Rio sector right now. And also, the other thing that's changed is that you're having large numbers of single adults crossing through the Big Bend area of all different nationalities, who are coming to take advantage of the fact that there is almost no border patrol defending the Big Bend area. And they're on these long uh, journeys through the wilderness of that area to reach Interstate 10, which is the east west artery into the United States. Once you're on I 10, the smugglers have somebody pick you up in a truck or a van or a vehicle and drive you to Chicago or Florida or New Jersey or wherever you want to go. And the numbers of single adults coming through the Big Bend area are 400, 500% higher than they've ever been. So that's kind of a new and interesting thing that's happening along the southern border. Every sector, every part of the border, it has its own unique characteristics that attract their own unique demographic. So in the Rio Grande Valley sector in southern Texas, that's where you see a lot of the families crossing over in huge numbers, tens of thousands, because it's easier and they are being allowed in and being legalized almost instantly when they reach a border patrol station. So every area is a little bit different.
Um, I don't think I'd seen the part about the single males coming in.
Yes.
That that strikes a similarity in what's been happening to Europe and almost the vast majority, and maybe about 80 to 90% of the Muslim migrants of primarily North Africa um, coming into Europe, and they are again about 90 to 80% at the least um, single males, and that is changing the huge population, the population in Europe as a whole. So I was wondering if you
And
think there's any similarity there as well.
there's an inherent risk in the fact that you have single military aged men crossing who do not want to be caught. They are evading, whereas the families cross over and they just sit there and wait to get caught. They turn themselves in voluntarily. They want to be caught because they're going to get legalized right away. But the single adults are still being pushed back into Mexico by the Biden administration under the pandemic-related Title 42. So they don't want to get caught. And you have to wonder, among, military-aged men, what their histories and backgrounds are. The majority of them are eventually going to get through undetected and into the nation's interior. And that's always a scary proposition when you have young men of any nationality crossing into the country and just reaching the interior undetected. And that's happening in very increasing numbers.
That's really scary. I know that I normally would ask you, is there anything we can do to fix this? But we're not in that place where anything can, we don't have a government that will do what's right. That's where we're stuck.
Yeah, I mean, the question is like, how much of this can even the Democrats stand? At what point is it too much? How many people are going to be allowed to come in? Millions and millions. I mean, that's the question. It's not that it's not stoppable. You can stop this. Trump showed that you can really tamp those numbers down by deterrence-based policies of returning people to Mexico automatically to apply for asylum there, to not let people come in on the honor system. I'll report to my nearest immigration office in Chicago, Scouts Honor. Those kinds of policies are highly incentivizing and motivating. Trump's policies were highly disincentivizing and deterring. Nobody wanted to live the great Mexican dream. They didn't come to live in Mexico. In fact, as I wrote the other day, most of the migrants, the extracontinentals that are coming in through the Darian Gap, are people that had been living in peace, security, and relative prosperity for years in South American countries, Brazil, Peru, Chile, Argentina, those kind of countries, because they knew they didn't have a chance when Trump was in office. So they just stayed where they were. Now they're just trading up. So those people they're not coming from Haiti. They're coming from Chile or Brazil or Guyana or someplace else where they've been living already, not under duress. So a lot of those people that are coming in are fairly prosperous. They just want to be more prosperous. And every one of them will apply for political asylum as though they would be persecuted if they were sent back to Haiti, where they haven't lived in years.
That's an important point. I want to say thank you. Please do not stop your work. I'm expecting one of your next articles to be do they really report in when as they say they will?
Well,
thank you.
I do want to tell you, I'll leave you with one other thing, Paul, is that there are some interesting things happening in the state of Texas right now, where the governor and the Texas Department of Public Safety are responding to this border crisis in their own way. The Texas Department of Public Safety has rushed hundreds and hundreds of state troopers down to the border to plug the gaps and to start bringing charges against illegal immigrants for criminal trespass, child endangerment, smuggling. They're busting smugglers now. And some of the county sheriffs are doing the same thing. It could be that over the next the balance of 2021 that we see the state of Texas provide the deterrence-based policies that the feds won't, that the Biden White House won't. So keep an eye on that. There's even a proposal out there for the state to finish the wall in Texas.
Oh, now that wouldn't be a surprise. Texas, I never cease to be surprised on what they can do when the feds don't step up. Thank you again, Todd. I don't want to forget. Tell people where they can follow your work and more anything.
Sure.
Tell them more about the Center for Immigration Studies.
Sure. Well, most of my work can be found at cis.org. That's Center for Immigration Studies. And also toddbensman.com. It's my portfolio website. And I have a book, America's Covert Border War, which is available on Amazon or Barnes and Noble for those of you who don't like Amazon, or anywhere that books are sold online or even at bookstores.
Thank you. We'll have to have you back soon. God bless.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to push that button.